Hi there. Welcome to the Lifestyle Herbalist Podcast, where we hope to bring you a healthy dose of happiness. I'm your host, Dabney Vaccaro, clinical herbalist, health coach, lover of plants.
And I'm Sabrina Cooper, registered culinary holistic nutritionist and herbalist. Join us as we dive into the art of herbalism, mindfulness, and healthy lifestyle practices to help you achieve a happier and healthier life. Whether you're a seasoned herbalist or just starting your wellness journey, we're here to provide you with the insights, tips, and inspiration for a more balanced and joyful existence. So grab your favorite herbal tea, sit back, and let's get a healthy dose of happiness together.
Hey, welcome back to the Lifestyle Herbalist Podcast, where today Sabrina and I are going to be talking to you all about what we do to try and minimize our grocery expenses by meal prepping and trying to eat healthy while on a budget. So welcome back.
I know it's been a long time. It's exciting. I mean, we've been like so busy in our gardens, work, life, summer, enjoying every moment of it. And now that we're getting in the cooler temperatures, we have time to sit in front of our computers again and do our podcast.
Yes, so true. I've missed you, Sabrina.
I know, it's been so long.
Well, yesterday I had a patient in the dental clinic, and we were discussing just pricing in general and how things have just gone up. And he was just complaining a bit about how expensive food is and how difficult it is to try and eat well, when you have budget constraints and, there's just expenses. There was a statistic that came out last year that something that cost $400 more per month just throws a normal family into dire straits. Like the normal average family, at least in America, cannot withstand a $400 increase in their budget per month. And if you think about a car part or, a medical expense, like that $400 can quickly disappear. And to think that
sure.
food, how much it's gone up. Like, what do you think, Sabrina?
Yeah, I just think, here we're seeing more people going to food banks. Like food banks are running dry because people are facing this food scarcity because everything's getting more expensive, like all the increases in everything, and salaries aren't going up. And some people are now having to take second jobs, and it's kind of scary when this is happening in today's society. And, I think that it's really impacting people and it's affecting people's mental health, their physical state. And it's really hard for people nowadays. Like I think, we look back and we think, wow, this was really expensive, but now but we could afford it. We could still live. Now it's expensive and we're not even able to make ends meet, which is crazy, and I actually thought that the other day. This is why I thought to Dabney, I brought it up to Dabney. I was sitting in my car after grocery shopping and I thought, like, I can't believe how much groceries. I literally had to look at my bill while I was sitting in the car and go, I bought all these like healthy foods. Like, how did it rack up to $200? Like, and I was like, this is insane, And I said to Dabney, we need to have a discussion on a podcast about the food prices and increasing and how we can still continue to eat healthy and be well with the prices that are increasing, right?
Yeah, because bad food is typically less expensive,
Right.
because it's subsidized many times through our
Even that's
government
getting
agencies.
expensive.
Yes.
Like I just even was just saying before we got on, 2 bags of chips, $9 Canadian, when before it used to be like 2 bags of chips for $5 or something, like so there's that price difference. And people are also noticing, the prices are increasing. Packages are getting smaller of things.
Yes.
So you're getting less for how much you're paying. That's also been like shown in a lot of, if you see TikTok videos and reels, I've noticed a lot of people doing comparisons. And it's really, really like interesting that that's happening as well. So it's part and parcel. And sometimes you think, oh, I wouldn't go to this grocery store because it's a no-name grocery store or it's like low budget grocery store, but it's the same food. And yet they might have better pricing than the big names that you know, right? And so
Right.
that's what I was also shocked because I went to a different grocery store and I thought, gosh, I should have went to the other grocery store that I normally shop at for certain things. And I was just like, oh, I'll just pick it up here, when I thought, oh, that's where I could have saved probably a few dollars, right? And so sometimes that extra little bit of time and preparing and looking at where the value of foods, what's maybe on sale, and work with that food group instead of focusing on on the food that you want, right? So you might have to pivot. So there's just tips and tricks that we thought maybe we could discuss together and get each other's opinions and bring it to our audience.
Yeah. And as you were talking, Sabrina, I started thinking about like maybe just working backwards. So this day and age, we have had the luxury, I would say, to be able to afford the foods that
Mm-hmm.
we want. We go out to eat, we get what we want. Our kids will say, I want XYZ. Our spouse will say, go ahead and pick this up for me at the grocery store. And we really don't think that much about it until just recently.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had the luxury of being able to afford the foods that we want to consume. And that has kind of been our own Achilles heel because then we got out of the habit of preparing foods in a more meaningful way. So if we go back in time, my mom was a couponer. She used to look at the sales ads that would come through every week. She would clip the coupons. She would look at what's on sale and she would devise her meal planning around what was on sale.
Right.
If we go back even farther to the people that were maybe born and raised in the Depression area, they didn't have coupons or necessarily the things that even my mom had, being able to have coupons and grocery shop that way. They had to kind of walk to their places or they were just had to be with whatever grocery store or whatever store or mercantile store was around them. But they primarily grew their food. They grew their chickens, they grew their cows, they grew their vegetables, and they ate from the things they had.
They
They had
harvested.
dry beans. They would soak their beans. They would cook their beans. They preserved and canned things, and they would have them during their winter months. So that being said, we've kind of gotten away from the homesteading part of it
Mm-hmm.
to now everything is kind of handed to us at the grocery store or the fast food places, and we've kind of gotten lazy in the kitchen, and our brain is kind of turned off and kind of turned to mush. And so
Yeah.
now we're upset because things are expensive and it's not convenient anymore. So, what Sabrina and I hope to bring to our audience today is maybe bringing some of those old fashioned ideas into today's way of doing things and just making a few little small changes in your kitchen and at your grocery store list can really impact in a great way how your family feels because food and medicine and a health really starts at the end of your fork, which I think you've heard us talk about before. So Sabrina, what tips do you have?
Well, I think when I personally go to the grocery store, like sometimes I have things in mind that I want for, that I have typically in my diet, weekly. But if I get to the grocery store and I see like things are a little bit on the higher price end that I want to spend for the certain items,
Mhm.
then I'll pivot and be like, you know what? I haven't had this other fruit in a while, or I haven't had, this vegetable and this is a better price point. I can make more with it. I'm going to go with that instead this week and see what I can, and then I'll find a recipe and work around that food. And that's just a case where I'm able to perhaps like people always like, yeah, but you have time. And I'm like, sure, I have a little bit of time and I'm a little bit more versed in the kitchen perhaps. And some people who aren't, some people are afraid to just get creative. But I think like if you actually like pick something, you can even in the grocery store go like Google at this point in time and Google like cauliflower and recipes and you'll find some cool recipes that pop up and you might be like, "Oh, I actually have that. I have that ingredient at home. I have that spice, that thing, that. Oh, all I need is a head of cauliflower and an onion." And you're
Right.
like, wow, I can make that dish. I can also make maybe a soup, or I could do some roasted veggie, whatever it is, like
Mhm.
cauliflower rice or, that kind of thing, right? So that's how I navigate the grocery store in my way. There are certain ingredients, obviously, that you are necessities, but then sometimes I'll hit the bulk store. If I don't need a full jar of a certain spice, I'll just go to the bulk store and get that small amount that I need for that specific time. Maybe it's just like, right? So those are kind of things that I do. There's also an app called Flip. I don't know if you've heard of it,
Oh, I haven't. What
but it
is that?
has like all the different grocery flyers in case you don't receive the flyers. And then you can
Mm.
compare and see what is on sale, things that you can work well with. And that's kind of fun too. Then you can make a list of where you want to go if you have the time. If you don't have the time, you might pick the grocery store that has the abundance of what you need and shop at that store primarily. And then I also do like some bulk shopping. So I do like, buy some of my things. If I like before farmers markets, I would get things at farmers markets, talk to the farmers. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, I have this for you or that for you. And you get to know your farmers. They'll give you a bit of a discount. Sometimes it's cheaper, sometimes it's not, but
Mhm.
you get local and you're supporting your local farmers. So that is what I really like. Um, so those are some of the things like right now that it's just quickly that I'm thinking off the top of my head. I'm sure when you say some things, I'll be like, oh yeah, that too, but
Yeah.
these are just some of the little things that I feel that I try to do because I like to eat healthy and primarily my cart is usually healthy food. I shop around like the outside of the shopping
Mhm.
grocery store. I
Mhm.
don't go in the middle of the aisles unless it's something really like I really, really need, canned or something like that. And I will say that I nowadays, and people are afraid to eat frozen vegetables, but frozen vegetables are also a great way to save some money if you aren't always eating all your vegetables right away, or you don't need something right on the fly. You need something on the fly. Just buy a bag of mixed vegetables or a vegetable that you like. So you always have vegetables on hand, and they're usually a little more cost effective than buying fresh.
Mhm. Yeah, that was going to be a suggestion for sure. Fresh is always best, but frozen is second best because it is frozen right at the peak of picking. So it
Yeah.
hasn't been in a truck, it hasn't been moved around, it hasn't been crated and shipped, and shipped to the grocery store and then sitting on the in the bin waiting for somebody to pick it up and buy it. So yeah, buying frozen food is a good way to reduce cost and also keep your food from going bad. The worst thing is to go to the grocery store with your list in hand, maybe see something that looks a little enticing and maybe you'll get a little creative and decide, "Hey, I think I'm going to make this casserole this week and I'm going to go ahead and get these all these fresh ingredients." And then life takes a different turn and you get busy or you just didn't put that time in to do your meal prepping, then you suddenly think about like, oh yeah, I was going to make that casserole. You look in your bin drawer and your lettuce has started to, or your kale has started to turn like yellow, or your bell pepper has started to get mold on it. And it is so devastating to think the money that you spent for these vegetables now are going to become compost. So that's wasted money and it's too expensive to waste money. We work too hard for it. So every dollar, every nickel, every penny should count when you're at the grocery store. So frozen is a good way to go because it's gonna stay fresh until you're ready to use it. Um, yeah.
Also, buying things in season is another one, right? Like, came across a statistic that says that buying fruits and vegetables in season can reduce the cost up to 10% to 20% by the US Department of Agriculture. Usually seasonal produce will be more abundant and less
Right.
costly.
Right.
I know in some areas we're not really able to get lots of seasonal because our seasons are varied, but then it will be like, in the summers, you're probably going to eat more fresh salads, corn, that kind of thing. In the fall, corn is still a little bit for us anyway here in Canada. And then in the winter, you'll get like your squashes, your beets,
Mhm.
that kind of thing, right? Your more
Mhm.
warming foods that you need for the winter anyway.
Right.
So my also tip is that you're going to want warming foods. I sometimes know if I'm going to have a busy week and I need to prep a few things in advance, I'll buy heartier vegetables, root vegetables, things like that, or things that won't spoil so quickly. that won't wilt and go bad, that like a salad, because I'll be like, oh, like I won't use it right away. Or I'll get some spinach and know that I have to use it in the first couple days. And then I'll have things for later, like an eggplant, a zucchini, pepper. That way I know, like, oh, you know what? I can make a stir fry. I could make grilled vegetables. I can make a soup. Like there's different things that I could do with those vegetables just in case they start to go. Like I look at them, they're getting a little, but they're still good for certain dishes that I can make. Zucchini
Yeah.
bread, zucchini fritters, these kind of things like that people want to make or put it in your eggs. So that's also a mindset that you can get into, is just thinking ahead. Like I know life sometimes just things pop up, but what can you make on a fly that you could just be like, oh, I need to have a quick dinner. Stir fry is always a number one key thing to use at vegetable soups, stews. We've said this before, I'm sure, on a lot of our podcasts, but it definitely is a way to shop as well for those things to keep your budget intact and like budget friendly, I suppose.
Yeah. The other thing is I know people struggle with is, normally if you ask somebody, hey, what's for dinner tonight? They don't usually tell you, oh, I'm having spinach and quinoa. They
Yeah.
usually talk about what meat, right? Because we're very
Yep.
meat oriented. So, oh, we're having steaks on the grill or we're having chicken tacos. And so it's always a meat. But just reducing your meat consumption by 1 or 2 days per week, that is a great way to cut down expenses
Costs.
because
Yep.
meat is very expensive. And there are a lot of great options. And I'm not talking about like the fake meat stuff. I don't really think fake meat is a good way to go. It's highly processed um, and has lots of preservatives in it as well. But um, you can use other things like beans and rice. Those things are very inexpensive, especially if you can get your beans dry, soak them overnight, and put them in a pressure cooker. They're absolutely delicious and pennies on a dollar for making.
Sure.
Um, and a good bean soup, oh man, there's just that's so good. And
So
even if
good.
you wanted to have a little meat, you can put a little bit of meat in there for that meat person. Because I used to be married to one. It's like, where's the meat? Where's the meat? There's not dinner. Where's the meat? So, just throwing in, a little bit of chicken. It's like, well, it's in there, just got to keep looking for it. It kind of satisfies that person maybe a little bit better when you're having your quote, quote, meatless night. Um, but just bean tacos, I mean, they're really good. Things like jackfruit. You can
Yeah.
use roasted cauliflower on a taco shell. There's a lot of things that you can just add spices to that kind of give the idea that it's like meat, but it isn't really meat. Mushrooms is a good substitute for meat.
Yep.
So
I
just being
agree.
creative. So it really comes down to, I think, whether you want to spend the money or you want to spend the time. If you're not going to spend the time, you're going to spend money.
True.
So
That's so true.
if you're going to have a trade-off, you're probably not going to be able to not to want to save money, not spend some time in your kitchen. And even when I was working 4 days a week and a busy mom with 3 kids, a husband, a house to clean, and all the things, Sunday was my day to do my food prepping. So after church, we'd have lunch, and then the afternoon, everybody would kind of separate and do whatever they wanted to do. I would go to the kitchen and I would just basically get every pot dirty. I know it was silly and ridiculous, but it helped me through the week because during the
Mhm.
week I was busy and I had to drive 30 minutes to get to work, 30 minutes home. And then when I got home at 6 o'clock in the evening, like everybody was hungry and I needed and wanted to have things ready to go so that we weren't on the fly and I wasn't grabbing pizza, at Papa John's on the way home because everybody was hungry and I wasn't prepared. Because that's where you get into trouble. You get into trouble when you're unprepared. So it doesn't have to be just the mom or the dad of the family. It can be the kids. Let them help. Help them by helping you create that meal plan for the month or even for the week.
Yeah.
And it can be variations. You can make a whole bunch of ground beef, let's say, and you can use it in different things throughout the week. You can use it with tacos, or you can use it, with a spaghetti sauce. And even like spaghetti and pasta is cheap. I don't love it, but a spaghetti squash tastes delicious. If you have
Agree.
it, if you cook it while you're doing other things on that Sunday afternoon meal time, spaghetti squash yields a lot of spaghetti-ish kind of meal. And it's a great thing to put pesto on or your pasta sauce. You throw some veggies in there. You can put some of your ground beef in there if you're a meat eater. And voila, you've got a very nutritious, hearty dish that is very inexpensive to do.
Yeah. And I think, people don't realize, I mean, I read somewhere you can save like almost up to 50% by not eating out and cooking your own food. And, sometimes you think, oh, I don't have time to do it. But really, there's certain meals that will take under 30 minutes,
Oh,
especially if you have things prepped. Maybe even if you don't have things prepped, it will take you 30 minutes to make a delicious meal. And as you were saying, Sunday, there's a lot of people that like enjoy watching sports on Sundays, football Sundays or whatever,
mhm,
you
mhm.
can put in like a nice, like, you can do anything in the oven and roast vegetables, prepare a few things for a few days, get them ready. And then I've had arguments with, not arguments, but discussions where people say, yeah, but I meal prep and then I don't have, we end up getting home late. We don't eat the food or this or that, all these excuses. And I think, well, what you could do is you could just freezer pack them or put them in containers and put them into the freezer. And then you could have, now you have some ready prepped meals for days that you might not. You can just take it out the night before, and then when you get home, put it in the fridge, and then you can eat it when you get home. You know what I mean? It doesn't take very long. If the kids have, like, if you have younger kids and they have homework, or maybe one spouse is home, they can throw it in the oven while you're taking the other kids to sports. I mean, there are ways. You just have to be more involved as a family.
Right.
And I think that's the key. I think and then nowadays it's so easy with like skip the dish. I don't know in the United States if you have like skip the dish and like Uber Eats and all this kind of
Oh,
thing,
yeah, yeah.
right? So it's so easy to just order in. People think, oh, it's fine to order in. Yeah, but now you have to take time to order it. Now you have to wait for it to to arrive to your house. Then by the time you eat it, and it might even be late. And if that's not even good for your health, because now you're eating at maybe 8 o'clock at night, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Then you're
Mhm.
like, food's in your belly, and then you go to bed. When you could have just
Mhm.
got home, made a quick meal, like, that would have been delicious and
Yep.
nutritious. And
Yep.
by 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you would have been done. Your dishes away, you would be in your cozies, doing whatever you want, right? Like, and the rest of your night, you have a few hours in the rest of your night. So it's just a matter of being prepared. And I think for us to save money, it means, we all, it's not even like it's people who have like, all walk, like all demographics. I'm not saying one or the other who has money or who doesn't, but it's all demographics. We can all, you know, save money and do better for the environment by not wasting food. And we can all learn how to eat and spend more effectively. I think it's really important nowadays. I sometimes see people and I'm like, even shopping, people think shopping at Costco, for example, is a great deal. But if you're not going to eat all that food, then it's not a great deal
Right.
because it's going to waste. I'm a culprit of that sometimes myself because I'm traveling from two places. I have a place here and another place. And so, you know, sometimes I'm here alone. My husband has to go back to city or we're both going to city. So we take things back and forth. And then it's like I'll send him stuff and he doesn't quite eat it all because I sent too much. And then he brings it back. And then by that point, it's getting kind of, and then, I'm here by myself. So I have all this overabundance of food. So now I've got to like and I'm like, how much food can one person eat? But like, so I have realized that it's easier for me and much more cost effective to shop at a grocery store and buy like one tomato as opposed to buying, when I had to buy tomatoes because I had them in my garden. But when I have to buy tomatoes, one tomato is better than having six tomatoes and
Right.
three of them might go bad. And then I got to figure something out to do. I mean, I can use the tomatoes. I'm just using that as an example. But, you know, it's a lot or fruit, or like then how many compotes can you make, right? Or something like that. So just shop for what you can and what you think you'll need. You can always go back to the grocery store at some point, and now they even have grocery delivery. So, you know, there are ways around like not having to do a bulk shop and then being like, oh, we overbought and we didn't use half the things that we bought.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know. That was a
and
rant
that's
sort
when
of, but
and
I just
that's when coming down or just looking at like when you make your meal plan for the week, you already know like what do we already have? What do I
Right.
need to get?
Exactly.
So then you're not overbuying and you make sure that you have what you need,
Hmm.
you know, on hand. So when
Right.
that time comes, you're ready and you're prepared.
And not shopping on an empty stomach and that you're hungry. Because when you go into a grocery store and you're hungry, you know what happens. Everything is enticing, everything looks good. Or you're going to shop for all the
Bad food.
extras that you don't need,
All the
all
bad
the
foods. My
sweets.
kids always loved it. My kids always loved it when their did the grocery shopping because, he would come back with 2 bags of chips. They were on sale. They were two for $5. It was back when chips were on sale
Two
for
for
two
five
for
days.
$5. You know, or he would come in with like frozen pizzas. Mama didn't buy frozen pizzas because it was junk food. That dad would come home was like, well, it was on sale for 2 for 10. Yeah. So, so my kids always loved it when their dad did the grocery shopping. Therefore, he did not do the grocery shopping very often because it was bad news for mama. It's like, we
Well,
don't eat that junk. What do you bring
yeah.
this into the house for?
But it's not junk. It's just flash frozen. Just
Yeah,
yeah, I know. And sometimes we just you kind of go, okay, like I said, like you might choose to spend somewhere and not spend somewhere else, like in the grocery store, for certain items. And sometimes that's the cost of is just the cost, like no matter how you shop it out, you might need like
yeah,
condiment or you might need that certain thing, right? That certain ingredient that you can't find in a bulk store or somewhere. And you'll just have to, and hopefully it will keep for as long as you need it and you use it often, right? Instead of just using it and buying it once, or make sure you like it before you buy it. And then it just sits in your cupboard and you've spent like, I don't know, I'm just going to throw a number like $10 for a small jar of something that you're now just not going to use.
right. Which is
Right.
why when I'm looking through recipes, if it's something that I think I'm not going to use but once or twice, I skip it and go to the next recipe because I'm just not going to fill up my cupboards with one and done.
Yeah. Or
It's
find a
too expensive.
substitute. Like maybe
Yeah,
it's a substitute. Like if it's like, chilies or something, and maybe you could use paprika instead, and you might use paprika more or something.
right,
Or garlic, because garlic can be a little bit spicy at times if you had enough or whatever, right? Like I'm just saying, like, or pepper. You might just be able to get away with pepper instead of the red chili. It could just be a flavoring at the end of the dish. So these are just a few things I think that if we really think about it and start being more mindful, which we always say, and intuitive about where our shopping, and in the moment think, do I really need this? Is it a want? Is it need? Is it really like, is there something else I can substitute it for at home that I have? Kind of rack your brain. Like you said, maybe take an inventory before you go to the grocery store, just like a quick look in your cupboards to see what you have. Then you can save a few dollars and the bill won't rack up so quickly.
yeah. I will share with you something my oldest daughter said to me a long time ago, and I've never forgotten it because it's so true. I was complaining to her about the price of organic foods and the price of just fresh foods in general. Of course, this is when I was feeding 5 people. She says, Mom, she was like a senior maybe in high school. She says, Mom, you're either going to pay the farmer or you're going to pay the doctor. And I never forgot that. I thought, wow, that was profound. So every time I'm at the grocery store and I'm kind of like, oh, I can't believe how much that is. It's like, but I'm going to feed this in my body because, like we said, health and nutrition start at the end of our fork. So if I'm not feeding my body good things in order for it to be
True.
stable, then I'm going to end up at the doctor's office. I have to go through the procedures. I'll have to go through treatment. I'll have to go through a diagnosis. And that's not inexpensive either. Even with insurance, it's still out of pocket and you still have to put your body through it. And then you're compromised ever since, ever since then. So
That's right. And
I
even
always
if you
think
don't
about
have to
that.
pay for it, I mean, we pay for our healthcare indirectly right here in Canada. So it's like we
Mhm.
do. But if I think if people actually saw the bill of what the cost would be if you had to pay out of pocket or even with insurance, it's still the principle of your health. You
Right,
don't want to get to that point where you have to go to the hospital and use the services. So
right,
keep yourself healthy. And I agree, even though the prices are increasing, there are ways around to still eat healthy. And like I said, like we said, like just pick the foods that work best for you, find things that are on sale, work with coupons. I don't know if we have that many coupons anymore, but work with like, obviously the sales and just and it's better for your health all around. It's even now food banks are trying to get fresh fruit and vegetables into their food banks, and so that's really good for people who really can't afford to or get their hands on fresh produce. And I think that's a great way for people to get that in. I'm also not opposed. Some canned vegetables, sometimes that's all you have. Well, you're going to work with it and you're going to make a delicious meal, but try to stay away from all the junk and the processed, because in the end, like you said, it's your health. It's most important, right?
Yeah. What's the things that are on my grocery list every single week is I get a head of cauliflower, a head of broccoli, I get carrots, usually a bell pepper, and I usually get some cucumbers. And I have it all chopped up and I have it in a container ready to go so that when I come home or I'm hungry, I have something that I can just reach in the refrigerator and satisfy myself with that is not a cookie, which is what I would normally gravitate toward. So I can't bring them into the house or I will eat them. I am an all or nothing person. But I just make sure that I have things available so that when that hunger pain hits, you have something that's nutritious to go for.
Yeah.
Apples and peanut butter is a great snack to have. So, just being prepared, spending the time, it's an investment. People put money into 401ks, they put them into retirement accounts because they're banking on being retired one day and having an income to come in. But if you don't make it, if you don't live it, if you don't live to get to retirement, all that investment could have been maybe an investment into your health. So an investment into your health means putting something nutritious at the end of your fork so that you can enjoy those golden years. I listened to a podcast probably a few months ago now, where the speaker was talking about for women's health in particular, there is a 20-year gap between health span and lifespan. And for women who are about the age of 62, which I am not that far away from, they have one or more chronic illnesses that prevent them from living the life they want to live. Yet because of pharmaceuticals, they're able to live another 20 years limping along until they finally die. Women, by and large, are in a nursing home far greater than men. And so for me, myself, my goal is to have my lifespan and my health span to be neck and neck. That's my own goal.
Yeah. That's a great goal to have. And yeah, it's amazing because if you don't have your health, what do you have really, right? Nothing. You can't, and sometimes the signs come too late. You think, oh, that's fine. It won't happen to me. I'll be okay. If I don't eat this, oh, it's once in a while. But then that once in a while becomes more and more because your body gets used to it. It starts to crave it. Like glucose levels are all off kilter. And if you don't eat properly, you're all off kilter, right? Like it goes up and down, up and down. It should be more stable throughout the day. And which is probably another podcast we could do because I am reading a book and then I'll share with you after when we're done. And I think we could do something about the glucose levels and things, and eating. And but I find that, in the society of just quickness, we just are always gravitating to something quick. And usually it's because our sugar levels have dropped and we always gravitate to something sweet,
Of
like
course.
like a piece of toast or like chips, something snacky, right? Usually if we're hungry, a donut, that's what people go, oh, I'll just have a coffee and a donut, I'll be fine. Or I'll have a coffee and a croissant, I'll be okay.
Sometimes it's boredom. Like there's many
Right?
times that I'm thinking,
It's
I
just,
want something crunchy in my mouth, but like I'm not hungry. Why am I wanting something crunchy?
yeah,
Like what's going
exactly.
on with
Like,
me
right. So
emotionally right now?
that's right. So instead, if we just like yourself, it's like have something in the fridge that you go, oh, and some people will be like, but I'm not really craving broccoli or that. Well, get something that you know you'll like. And eventually your body, the more you do it, your body's gonna be like, oh, I'm okay with some carrots and a little bit of hummus, or I'm okay with celery and some, whatever, or apples and some nuts and a couple pieces of cheese. That's fair. As long as you have your protein, fat, and your fiber like in your meals and little bits, like you'll be okay. So, like we said, just find the foods that you like, and it's okay. Some people are good with repetition, Not bad to eat the same food. I mean, it's better to incorporate other things into your diet. But if you really like something for breakfast, that's like, scrambled eggs, and then you have like the next day you might have some Greek yogurt and some berries with some nuts, but no sugar on top, then you're good because you'll feel fuller, longer, satisfied for at least up to 4 hours. And then your
Right.
next meal will be something, and you won't have those dips all the time. And then that's why those good foods are so important, right? And
Right.
unfortunately, some of these things, like the Greek yogurts and things, if they go on sale, it might not be that specific brand you like, but even look for no name brand because it's just this, it's fine. It's not different. It's just the labeling, right? Like, so that's another option for when you're going grocery shopping. If that brand that you don't like, just maybe try a different brand for that week if it's on sale. And then you can always go back to your brand the following week, if you really are particular. I mean, I get it. Some people want that, but if that's what you choose to spend your money on and it's good and it's great, then by all means, you know what I mean? And then you'll maybe budget somewhere else. So, but I agree that we all need to take hold of our health. And that's like myself as well. I find that if I fall off the bandwagon, I call it the bandwagon, but if I fall off my own
Mhm.
healthy eating, um, then I don't feel myself. I don't feel great. I have my brain fog. I'm tired. I'm lethargic. My workouts struggle. I'm just not where I should be. And then I think to myself, what's more important? Me having a great day and feeling great and energized and being able to do the things I really love, or to feel sluggish all day and craving foods that I don't even really want, but it's just that I'm just my body is just out of sync. And so now I've got to resync it all. So I feel like you're right. It's better to have that longevity. And when I think of people around here in this area where I'm at, the older they are, the more that they're energized. They probably have eaten well their whole life. And when do they start to fall and decline? Is when they aren't being fed well, or they're in a home and they're not getting the proper nutrients, or they're not getting out as much and they're not exercising. And that's
Mhm.
when things start to fall apart. So
Mhm.
while we can, and we're still a bit young, we need to like focus on that. So we get to those ages where we're not going to be bad, right? And so that all stems from good food, budgeting to eat good foods. And yeah,
Yeah. Well,
I
we
hope.
hope that you will take away at least one nugget that you can
Mhm.
incorporate today that can help with your budget, but also help you to live sustainably, live well, to feed yourself well and feed your family well so that you can experience a healthy dose of happiness.
I agree.